it is important that you have a footprint outside of social media. I don't want to be the fear monger who's like, you never know what's going to happen. I do think it's very important to pour a lot of time, energy, effort into your socials. And that for a lot of people is where they're getting their leads. It's where they're converting. However, at the end of the day, if you don't have a website, if you're not building, even down to just like SEO, if you're not leaving a footprint, if people can't find you in other places except your link in bio to go to your stand store, to your scheduler, what are you going to do if something happens? I mean, at that point, you're screwed.
Hey there, welcome back to another episode of Social Media Manager Confidential. So today I got to do a podcast interview with Kaili Meer. And Kaili is the founder of Reveal Studio Co., a copywriting studio specializing in psych-driven web and sales copy. She fuses classic journalism principles like storytelling, research, and connection with research-backed consumer and sales psychology strategies to write copy that connects, compels, and converts. So she's not a social media manager, which is who I typically interview on this podcast. However, we talked about how to launch your website as a social media manager, what specifically should be on your website, and how to make it focused towards sales and converting clients. So I thought this would be super helpful for you, especially for those of you who don't have a website or are trying to revamp yours. So I will go ahead and get the interview going. Hey everyone, I am back and I'm so excited to be talking to Kaili Meer. Hi Kaili, how are you?
Hi, I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. Okay, so I found Kaili. We follow each other on Instagram, but she's very active over on Threads. And that's like where I go to hang out and have fun. And there were so many good opinions that you post on Threads that I'm like, we need to connect. And then you were like, can I be on somebody's podcast? And I'm like, oh my God, come be on mine. So that's what happened. That's how we found each other. But I love everything that you stand for, which sounds strange, but like everything you post, I'm like, that's so good. She knows her stuff. We align really well, business values wise and ethics wise. And I also know you're really good at what it is you do. So it seemed like my podcast listeners would really love hearing from you. So today we're talking about launching your website as a social media manager. What kinds of things should be on it in order to actually convert to clients? But first, I want to ask you this, like, let's get it right off the bat. Do you think a social media manager needs a website when they're launching?
Yes, I actually think pretty much everyone who's a service provider, educator, anything in that realm, you need a website. And I guess the word need is maybe extreme. I do think there are people who could figure it out without one, but I do think a general rule of thumb, if anybody was asking me, I would tell them, yes, get a website.
Yeah, I agree. And like, even when I am looking to hire anyone at all, I will go to the Google and search them. And if they don't have a website, if it just takes me to their Facebook page or their Instagram page, I will move on to someone who has an actual website. Because I just feel like it's a little bit more like, oh, this person has invested in their business. This isn't a free type of scam type thing. Like they've at least paid a couple bucks a month to have a website. So this potentially is like a safer purchase.
Yeah. And it's easier to get the information you need in one place. Sure, you can post on Instagram and share your services and share your approach and show off why you would be a great person to work with. But you're then forcing somebody to piecemeal that information together and go through your feed and go through your highlights instead of just being able to go to one place to get the info.
Yeah. It puts a lot of extra work on your potential client, who honestly is probably not going to take that time to do that extra work. They're just going to move on to someone who has a website.
Correct.
What are your thoughts on people saying you don't need a website?
Yeah, so this has been really interesting. I've seen this a lot, both on Instagram and Threads, now that Threads is a thing. This idea of primarily, I would say, coaches or mentors telling people, you don't need a website. You don't need a website to start. You don't actually need anything. You just need an Instagram essentially, or a stand store, or a landing page. And I think what's really interesting about that is, in my opinion, as somebody who studies sales psychology and, utilizes sales psychology when I'm writing websites for people or sales pages or emails, it's very smart what they're doing, because they're showing people like, hey, if you pick me, if you work with me, if you pay me to be your mentor, it's going to be so much easier than if you go to somebody who says, you need a website, you need to invest in branding. And then as the consumer, your brain goes, oh, okay, well, as humans, we want everything to be easier. So I'm going to work with this person. And then instead of investing that in your website, which is going to bring you ROI for years to come, you just invest it in that person who sold you this dream that, hey, you don't actually have to work that hard. You don't actually have to do that much stuff. You can just show up. Yeah. So I do think I see what they're doing. I think it's a smart marketing tactic. I don't think it's quality or honestly ethical advice.
Yeah, I agree. And it's one of those things where it's like, it works for them because of what it is that they're selling.
Yes.
It does not like cross apply to service-based people or whatever else you're doing. Unless you're doing exactly what they're doing, that is not going to work.
It's also not a sustainable strategy. And we don't have to get into all of this, but at some point, it is important that you have a footprint outside of social media. I don't want to be the fear monger who's like, you never know what's going to happen. I do think it's very important to pour a lot of time, energy, effort into your socials. And that for a lot of people is where they're getting their leads. It's where they're converting. However, at the end of the day, if you don't have a website, if you're not building even down to just like SEO, if you're not leaving a footprint, if people can't find you in other places except your link in bio to go to your stand store, to your scheduler, what are you going to do if something happens? I mean, at that point, you're screwed and you have not been set up for success. So,
yeah, if people were to Google you, your link in bio or your stand store isn't going to come up in the Google search results.
Correct.
Yes. And just a little side note, I believe social media managers need to have a website nowadays to be competitive and to kind of stand out and show this is a legit business. Here's our portfolio. Here's all the things that we can provide for you. That is going to set you apart from the people who are just kind of trying it out, getting their toes in the water. Like, you're serious. This is a real business. And it builds that trust and that authority just kind of subconsciously with potential clients. So let's dive into the sales psychology web copy piece. What do social media managers need to have on their website?
Okay. I have a list.
I love it.
So I have created websites, not the design portion, obviously. I've written the copy for a lot of social media managers and social media management agencies. And I have like the basics. So I believe everyone's website needs to be tailored to their brand, to their audience, to all those things, their personality, their voice. However, there are some fundamental things that I think we need to make sure are on your website. So I'll start with the basics. Obviously, who you are and are not for. We need to make it clear. We are not for everyone, especially when you're doing something as, niche as social media management. Do you really want to manage for a dental practice and an influencer? Like, they're just so different and they take different thought processes, strategies, different understandings of audiences, or even down to like, do you like working with, it doesn't have to be by industry. It can be, do you like working with beginners? Do you want to be the person who helps somebody from the start? Or do you only want to work with people who are further along, already have a following? Like, who do you want to work with? Make that very, very clear so that people can feel either aligned and like, oh, okay, she's for me, he's for me, or yeah, they're not for me. This isn't going to work. How you stand out. And so this also known as differentiators. This can be your unique approach, your point of view on social, your process. I think a lot of people get nervous around this because they're like, well, I don't really know what my differentiator is. And then a lot of people try to depend on price to differentiate them. There's so many other ways to differentiate yourself. So really think through what is special about working with me. What is just special about me as a person? You're working with them one-on-one. So maybe it's your vibe. Maybe literally it is your point of view when it comes to social media, how you view strategy, your unique approach, all of those things. What is your actual promise here? So what are you telling them that working with you will help them do or achieve or have? So this could be like, are we actually saying, well, I'm going to get you results as in conversions? We're going to get more sales. Are you saying you're going to just be able to open up your feed, send people to your Instagram, and it's going to be be a place that feels like you. So it's more of a feeling, it's more of an aesthetic. Is it simply you're going to get your time back? Is it increased engagement? What are we promising them? And then we need to be able to deliver on that. Obviously, your services with your prices, we need at least starting or average pricing on there. We do not, it is just bad practice to make somebody inquire or download a pricing guide. They're going to pass you up. The research is clear. Anybody telling you otherwise, I'm sorry, but they're lying to you.
Yeah, I think it's outdated. I will completely skip if I have to download a pricing package or like a pricing sheet or whatever. I will skip it and find somebody who has their pricing listed.
It's just strange. It's just and I think it's rooted in when people really were rooting for value-based pricing, like figure out how much that person makes and then change your pricing based on that. Which in my opinion is also silly because imagine, I always tell people, apply the things you're learning in the online space to the real world. So like you step up to the grocery store and they're like, wait a second, what's your income? And you tell them and all of a sudden the eggs go from $3 to $9. You're not going to be like, oh, well, that makes sense. You're going to be like, no, how much did these eggs cost? So if it feels icky when you apply it in real life, it's probably because it is icky and the online space has gotten away with a lot of icky things for a long time. How your process works. So at least an overview, what is this going to look like? And including things like, do you require them to create their own content? Will you go to them and take content? How long do they have to come up with revisions? How much in advance do you create socials for? So just helping them understand like what to expect. You don't have to get into the nitty gritty. It can be, 3 or 5 steps, but it just lets people kind of see how much time, energy, effort they're going to have to put in. Obviously, before and afters, especially if that's kind of your thing, like you make grids look better, or you've created reels that have done really well. So you're kind of sharing the stats. Social proof. So testimonials, or DMs, making sure that we are getting full permission for both of those. There are legalities behind that. You can't just share, you can't even just repurpose someone's Google review, because that's technically their copyrighted material without permission. And then the last thing I have on here, aside from personality, which should be everywhere, are some connection points and fun facts on your about page. You are in an industry where it's important that people kind of know who you are as a human. You're not robotic. You're representing them and their brand in a very intimate, personal way. And so you should kind of let them in a little bit as well.
Yeah, I love that. And I always love reading the facts. I think it helps kind of humanize you and connect on points that maybe things that you both enjoy or you both believe or both kind of relate to. It really just kind of helps set you apart in that way when you feel familiar in some type of way.
Yes.
I love that. Those were so helpful. When it comes to the kind of all of the things that you've said, how would you suggest people format that? Like different pages, like an about page and like a service page, or like, how does that work?
I definitely think people should have what I call the big 3 plus a contact inquiry page. So your big 3 are your home, your service, and your about pages. And then you should have like your contact us inquire page. I tell people, think of your home page as a landing page in a directory. So this is where when people come to your site, this is obviously probably where they're going to land. We need to set the tone, set the vibe, let them know they're in the right place. And then we want to direct them to the other pages because there's really no action taking place on home unless you have a pop-up or, listen to my podcast, download my emails or get on my email list. So we want to then direct them out to our services and our about page. So then obviously your services page is where you can kind of share your process, your pricing, what's included. Your about page should be your story, your credentials, connection points, before and after, social proof, things like that kind of can go on home and services. About, really, we want about to not be prompting them to buy or to be selling toward them. We want them to feel like this is a safe space to just get to know us, understand who we are, what we do, how we do it differently. But on home and services is pretty much fair game to create copy in a way that is funneling them to eventually want to work with us or buy our products or join our program or what have you.
Yeah, I love that. That was so helpful. What do you have for people who maybe want some help from you? I know you have like a template shop and all that. Can you tell us a little more about that?
Yes. So I do have a template shop. I also have a free, so we'll start at free. I have a web copy prep checklist. So basically it runs you through, it gives you questions to think about if you're about to write your web copy for home, about, services, all your pages, to kind of just get your brain in the right place and get ready to write your copy. So that's a really great free resource that's on my shop. So shop.revealstudioco.com. Then I have an about page template. So that is really helpful. It's basically like different types of about pages depending on if you're a service provider, a product-based business, an educator. So here we would be doing the service provider one, and it gives you the format, the flow, fill in the blank prompts. It will help you write an about page probably in 2 to 3 hours. Whereas before, a lot of people are going to not know where to start at all.
Yeah.
And then Kiera from Identity House she's a designer. She's been my go-to designer for 6 years, just created and soft launched a brand called Built for Dreamers. So Built for Dreamers we create show it templates that have copy and design. So not only will you have a beautifully designed site, but the copy portion is included as well. So the copy is obviously not written for you. That would be impossible, but you have complete guidance, prompts, fill in the blanks. The order is in the right order. And then you just basically pair the design and the copy, both have letters. And so you say, okay, I just wrote paragraph A. I now paste it into paragraph A on the design. So
love that.
Yes, we're very excited.
That's so smart. I love Show It. My website's on Show It, and I love it.
It's great. Yeah.
Yes, agreed. Okay. I love that. I'm going to link all of your links and where to connect with you. What's the best social media platform that they can kind of like chat with you?
I think for chatting, definitely Instagram. So revealstudio.co for personality to kind of see my thoughts. I think Threads is it's just fun, but they obviously haven't come up with like a messaging component. So that's a little difficult. But yeah, I'm on Instagram as well.
Okay, perfect. So I'll link her Instagram in the show notes. I'll link the links to all of the things in the show notes. So you can go over there. Thank you so much for coming on here, Kaili. This was super helpful. I'm sure people are going to have a lot of follow-up questions for you. So keep your inbox open for that.
Yes, of course.
Thanks so much. Have a good one.
You as well. Thanks for having me.
I hope you found that interview very helpful. Definitely go check out Kaili, connect with her over on Instagram, follow her over on Threads. She has some pretty great stuff over there. And the links to everything are in the show notes for you. Don't forget to make sure you're getting access to all the episodes of this podcast by tapping the follow button, which is the plus button in Apple Podcasts, or the subscribe button on YouTube. There's a new episode every Friday. And if you're enjoying this free podcast, help me keep it going by leaving a rating or review wherever you're listening. And I do appreciate the DMs, but the ratings are what help us stay in the rankings. On Apple Podcasts, you can click Go to Show in the menu and then scroll down to the ratings area. Or if you're on Spotify, you can go to the show page, not the episode, the show page, and then tap the star icon underneath the show description. Even if you just leave 5 stars and not a written review, and there's extra brownie points if you share the link to this episode with friends who you think will enjoy it. Thank you so much for listening. I'll catch you next time.